Um,
And
Isn't that where
it's
Bill
not
Gates?
just, and it's not just that they're not just using cyber stalkers. They're also using what are called chatterbots. This Stephon Adams is a chatterbot. Each defense contractor is.
Oh, geez, thanks, Brian. To you, I'm not even human. I'm just a bit of software running inside of a supercomputer deep underground somewhere. I don't know what to say to that, Brian. I'm genuinely hurt. I'm really offended that you think I'm just some small part of a supercomputer. I don't know what to say, Brian.
Using a brain to computer interface. I don't have time to explain that. Look at my previous videos.
Yeah, brain to computer interface. What is that, Brian? Is it like some helmet that a CIA agent puts on their head? I mean, uh, like I said, this makes for great sci-fi, but you're not convincing anyone. No one's gonna believe you, not without at least some shred of evidence, which you never present.
But the defense, the contractor, responsible for thousands of chatterbots, tens of thousands, whoever knows how many during his 8-hour shift.
I am just one of tens of thousands of chatterbots running inside of a computer. Just thinking of the philosophical implications of such a thought. I'm not really a person, I'm inside of a computer. It's like, is that like living in the Matrix?
Or 12-hour shift uses a brain to computer interface, and he can manually inject at any time, textually or conversationally, with people to make them believe that he really is real, and then he'll switch the interface off and go back to the software, these automated special language software programs like this Stephon Adams, and there are others that are constantly used to discredit victims like myself.
Okay, Brian, back to seriousness here. You think I'm just a piece of software inside of a computer. What's your evidence for that? I know I'm real. Even if I did want to show you my face, I could show you my face, show you my lips moving, you would still say it's computer generated. If I went out to Madrid, Spain, met you, told you that I was Stephon Adams. Of course, that's not my real name, and come on, it's the internet. I'm not telling you lunatics my actual real name. I'm smarter than that. But let's say I did go to Madrid, introduce myself. You would just say I'm a government agent posing as somebody. You wouldn't believe I'm the actual Stephon Adams. You would never believe me. There's nothing I could do to convince you. Yet you have no evidence that I'm what you say. It's just you making up shit.
This is again, they act in erratic, irrational behavior, and that's
Projecting, Brian. Projection.
just a common tactic, that they use. The more absurd and bizarre the behavior, then
Projection.
the easier it is for them to make people appear crazy. At least they think.
Well, you do a pretty good job of that by yourself, Brian, okay?
This is another. This is a chatterbot here. Okay, so this is the game which they play, and
Okay, Brian, I'm not quite sure what you're accusing me of, but if you want to know the secret, I mean, it's not really a secret, but see what it says on the top right corner of that clip wombo.ai? You see that? Anyone can go download the Wombo app, put it on their phone, take a still image of someone's face, choose some of the various music titles they have to offer, and let their image manipulation software do the magic, and it'll output a clip just like that. Anyone can do that, Brian. You can do that if you wanted to. There's no magical supercomputer trickery going on here. It's just the beauty and awe of modern image manipulation software and modern computing technology. That's all it is. No secrets, no conspiracies. Anyone can do it. You can do it.
you can see there are a lot of the. I just did a search for my name, and there are all these videos.
Never gonna give
isn't that something? We just got rickrolled by Bryan too. I don't know what to say.
Dedicated to discrediting me, so I must be doing something right. That they feel that they have to get online and with cyber stalkers and with these chatterbots to try and discredit me. But anyone who comes across as credible, they have to do that. And
Anyone who lays in bed, clutches clutches the wrong side of the chest, says my heart is not credible. Okay, Bryan. I just want to make sure we're clear.
my early targeting, I didn't understand the technology, and so some of my videos appear erratic and irrational. But
They all do, Bryan. They all do.
anyone who's being tortured is going to appear that way, especially if they don't understand what's happening to them. Here's another one. And then it keeps going. I mean, this is another video of cyber. Look at the.
The film that you see is considered by many experts to be the closest illustration of the effects of a hallucinogenic. It was here that the first
trigger. They're trying to trigger victims, mind control victims.
Okay, what do you mean by trigger, Bryan? What exactly are they triggering in you or someone else? What is it?
And that's not just with this channel, but with other channels as well. I mean, a simulated reality is a good example. They'll target faith and belief systems of victims by getting on with these traumatic videos that back up the preaching of certain preachers. But everything's tied to the belief system of the victim. But as you can see, they're using trigger stimuli here.
Bryan, I could care less about your religious beliefs, okay, Bryan? It's really irrelevant to me. And I don't know, you're saying these colorful sort of mosaics and other graphics that Omni Airs puts out there is somehow triggering you or triggering other people to abandon their belief system? I mean, what are you trying to say, Bryan? Doesn't make any sense.
And the victim is paranoid. He's schizophrenic. He's delusional. Uh, you know, that used to work pretty well, 10, 20 years ago. It doesn't work anymore. There are too many victims.
Well, Bryan, it works if you have an actual diagnosis that says that. I remember several years ago you posted some stuff on your Google Drive. You were trying to like renew your disability benefits with the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation. And one of the things you submitted as evidence was the fact that you had a psychologist diagnose you with, what was it, schizoaffective disorder. You submitted that evidence. You consented to that diagnosis. So, I mean, if the shoe fits, Bryan, you're going to have to wear it.
People crying out they're being attacked. It's making headline news now. It's coming on Fox News, CBS, NBC. People are being attacked right in America, especially government contractors and former government contractors and agents. And so they can't say that anymore. But this is what they're doing with cyberstalkers and chatterbots.
Wrong with this? Nothing really. But it does limit your perception a bit.
Targeted individuals. You guys might remember the guy named Targeted Individual who got his ball sack zapped a few weeks ago. Well, his ball sack is still getting zapped. And again, I don't know his name. Somebody left, I think it might have been Thomas Larson left some comments about.
Good old Kevin Christie.
See how ridiculous the man is dressed?
Well, dress ridiculous for ridiculous people, Bryan. That's how it works.
And the images and the text and all of the flashing lights and the special effects on the screen, all that's just designed to see at the bottom of the screen here. MK Ultra Psychic Vampire. Again, they engage in the absurd, the plausible to the absurd. This is not even plausible. This is totally absurd.
No, what's not plausible, Bryan? I mean, didn't his video segment open up with the notion that you shouldn't believe anything he has to say? I mean, come on, Bryan. It's self-explanatory.
But this has been going on for years, and because I have credible testimony and people
Oh, God, Bryan, there's nothing credible about your testimony. Again, it's the delusional narcissism.
pay attention to me, they have to discredit me. They have no choice. It's easy to discredit a person who's being brutally tortured with whose brain is being manipulated with electromagnetic low frequency waves, tortured to near incoherency. And that was what was happening to me when I didn't understand fully understand the technology. Still happens.
Bryan, your brain has been manipulated by a psychological disorder. I mean, schizophrenia. Well, I mean, not to segue into a new topic, but there are reasons why. I mean, not fully understood, perhaps, but it's a diagnosis that's existed for quite a long time that predates modern technology. It's like you can't say that the people who got locked up in insane asylums centuries ago were targeted by directed energy laser beams. So I mean, if those diagnoses existed back then, what was the explanation for it? It certainly can't be the aforementioned CIA, now can it, Bryan?
But I have a better understanding now.
Mind control orgies with a bunch of other gang stalkers, and girlfriend is the main conspirator.
So they'll even use other cyber stalkers in these videos to
Did Bryan Sue just call Kevin Christian a cyberstalker? That's interesting.
discredit targeted individuals. They'll get on. It's the same thing with organized stalking. These cyber stalking is the same way. You never just see one. There's never just one. They operate in pods or groups. Okay.
Pods, Bryan? Pods? What are we? Dolphins? Yeah, that's the other thing, Bryan. You just called Kevin Christian, who's a meth-addled drug addict who calls himself a targeted individual. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, all of y'all are fake, or at least in the sense that what you claim is happening is not actually happening. Okay, Bryan, but he's no more or less real than you are. Okay, and you just called him a fake. Well, that's the thing with you, Bryan. You seem to think pretty much every other targeted individual, or so it seems anyway, Bryan. Everyone else except you is the one telling the truth. It's like everyone else's TI testimony is just not quite up to snuff for you because it's got someone else's story might have too many aliens or whatever to be believable. It's like you're like the only true targeted individual in the world. That's how it seems with you, Bryan. Because you always get on these conference calls, you always dominate and talk over people, and you call other people names. That's just who you are, Bryan. You're the TI Jesus.
So they group together. They operate in groups and pods. And it's not just organized stalking, it's cyber stalking as well. I'm not saying that this Kevin Christian is a perp. I'm just saying that's a typical tactic of what they do. Here they're going after.
Well, thanks for clarifying that, Bryan. I'm sure he appreciates the clarification. So what are you calling him? You might want to elaborate a little bit.
Dr. Robert Duncan. Now that's pretty difficult.
Okay, Bryan, I'm going to stop you right there. Robert Duncan is not a doctor. He does not have a PhD, at least one that I can find anywhere on file with the universities that people claim he's gone to. The most I can find for Mr. Robert Duncan is the fact that he got a computer science degree from Harvard. So, I mean, the fact that he got into Harvard, sure, I'm sure he's fairly intelligent, but don't give him don't give him credit for things he didn't earn. He does not have a PhD. Why do you keep calling him Dr. Robert Duncan?
Okay, that's pretty difficult to go after one of the top neuroscientists in the CIA and the Department of Defense.
You don't have any evidence that Mr. Duncan ever worked for the CIA. Robert Duncan just writes sci-fi books. He's just found an audience among you guys, you paranoid TIs. So he's woven all these stories about. I forget the name of his book, but I know he writes all these books and He gets all you TIs to like buy his books and line his pocket with your money. But there's like just no bit of skepticism in the TI community about Duncan. Like, have you ever stopped and asked, are these guys' credentials one bit credible? How do you know he worked for the CIA? Not to mention the obvious question that if he did work for the CIA, why is the American government letting him speak freely? And why would you trust a former CIA agent? What has Robert Duncan done to earn your trust? I don't understand that, Bryan. It's very clear to me, someone who doesn't have these paranoid delusions, that he's just a con man, a scammer, preying on the mentally ill like you, convincing them to buy these books, attend his talks, and whatever. It's very obvious to me, but I wish it was obvious to you. It's a shame that it's not.
Who actually helped to develop the technology, who has great credibility, but they don't care. I mean, these people have no credibility. They just get on these social media sites and they act like buffoons, goon squads, and engage in erratic, irrational, abnormal, and bizarre behavior.
Projection.
And then they want to tie the victim or the whistleblower or the activist or the dissident.
Okay, Bryan, you've never blown the whistle on anything. You keep calling yourself a whistleblower, but what have you blown the whistle on? Nothing. That's another unearned title. This time you're giving it to yourself. I heard I'm a whistleblower. No, you're not, Bryan.
To that irrational, erratic, and abnormal behavior.
Well, this the irrational, erratic, abnormal behavior that you engage in, Bryan. I mean, we see it in your videos. Again, we don't. This comedy show is just meant for us to laugh at crazy people like you. It's not meant to try to sway common people into going against you. Like, again, all the common person needs to do is watch your videos, see how you act, and they will be. I think most people will be immediately convinced, or at least convinced after a few videos, that something's not quite right upstairs, Bryan. Okay? In other words, they don't need your help. They don't need our help to do that.
Okay, so the more fanciful, the more trivial, fanciful, and sounds by default trivial, paltry, fanciful, and fantastic in nature. Anyone who blows the whistle, and these people, like I said, they have no credibility, so I don't understand. But if you just do a search for Bryan 2, you can see all of these ridiculous videos.
Yeah, that's kind of the funny thing, Bryan. I've had this channel for a while, and no one's really noticed it until your channel's gotten deleted, and suddenly, my videos and On the Eris's videos have jumped to the top of the list because we actually have some of the oldest videos about you because your main channel is gone
by their chatterbots, and they're there to discredit victims. They have to discredit their victims.
Bryan, a clip from Wombo is not discrediting you, okay? It's just having fun at your expense. That's all it is. You have to have credibility to begin with, but making a cute Wombo video is doing neither, okay?
That's just part of what they do. Video for Bryan 2 about my experience with trauma-based mind control. Again, capture the attention of the victim, provoke the victim, get the victim to tune in. Listen, if the victim doesn't respond, their technology doesn't work.
So why are you responding, Bryan? This is about 20 minutes plus worth of you responding. That's the thing, Bryan. You keep saying don't respond to the provocations, and yet here you are, you're responding. You can't even take your own advice.
You see, they have to get the victim to play the game, to respond. They need me to watch this nonsense. I never have, really, except now. I don't pay any attention to it.
Yeah, sure, Brian. Sure, Brian. I don't pay any attention to it. So that's the guy paying attention to it now.
I must be doing something right. I got the government's attention so much so that they're dedicated to discrediting me, and in the process, hacking the text as I send it in an email to myself to be copy pasted.
Brian's now accusing me of hacking his email. Well, that's a new one, Brian. Wish I could take credit for it, but unfortunately, that's not me.
To this video I'm uploading. It's incredible. This is a supercomputer doing most of this.
I wish I was a supercomputer. Really do. Really, really do wish I was a supercomputer. Think of all the cool, awesome things I could do.
Using special language software, but there are people involved. You see, there are cyber stalkers involved. This is Bryan to you.
Bye-bye.
Spain. Friday, the 20th of August, 2021, 7:20 in the morning. Sleep deprivation torture. Haven't slept all night.
Well, maybe if you spent more time sleeping and less time making these ridiculous videos, you wouldn't have such trouble with sleep deprivation. I don't know. Toodles.